Alex, when do you plan on getting discontinued?
Right now.
Right now?
I
Oh,
would like to be discontinued for the rest of my life, please.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, can we do the show first, and then we'll talk about it?
No.
Too
You've been
bad.
canceled.
Too bad. For all of you who are wondering, Alex is not currently discontinued, but welcome to Total Pebble Knockdown. I am Nathan.
And I am not discontinued, Alex.
That's right. They are
Rather,
still
I guess I'm
making them.
continuing to being Alex.
You're continuing to be Alex. They are still in production, but he's only available for a limited time. So get yours now.
Your experience may be limited.
Your experience may indeed be limited. Good plug. Anyway, first up on the show, we have a weekly Muse, which might actually explain the intro better than anything else. So, Alex, this is one that came up this previous month, and it kind of resonated with me, so I wanted to talk a little bit about Nintendo discontinuing their eShops, the 3DS and the Wii U eShops in 2023. What that means is that it's actually going to either curtail or remove access to thousands of digital games that are part of their library. They're in that statement, basically, they had said that I think they're trying to do it so that it's all on, like, the Nintendo Switch store, or, like, the Switch Access, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all of these titles are going to still be available, and so how much access you have to it is a little bit iffy. There is a very handy little multi-stage process that they're going to be going through for the shutdown. They've given...
You mentioned you had a timeline.
I have 3 basic dates that they've given so far.
Okay.
According to what I have for media in front of me, I'm just going to use the IGN article for a timeline because they make it pretty clear.
Sure.
But in May 23rd of 2022, it will no longer be possible to add funds using a credit card to a 3DS or Wii U eShop account.
Okay.
On August 29th, it will no longer be possible to use an eShop card to add funds. However, it will still be possible to redeem download codes. In late March of 23, it will no longer be possible to make purchases, download demos or themes, redeem a download code, or add funds. So basically, at that point...
That's for the Wii U and 3DS, right?
You got nothing. Yes. That'll be for the Wii U and the 3DS.
So they're basically discontinuing support of the Wii U and 3DS.
They are basically doing that. It will remove access to 1,799 titles that are currently available on the eShop.
That's a lot of titles.
Just under 1,800, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, including, important to note, virtual console releases for Game Boy Advance, as well as a lot of stuff like 3D Classic remakes that they had. And they do say that there are many 3DS and Wii U games that can be purchased physically. Remember, physical media.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, the 3DS specifically has a ton of physical media, but it's out of print.
Yeah, which we'll talk about in a minute, because that is also important. The eShop closure will put additional pressure on supply, raise prices across the board. That is speculative, but I do understand what they're saying there. So in response to this, I wanted to just run over here to one of my other tabs. This has caused a few little concerns.
As it should.
About access and access to content. And one of the organizations, I should say, that had a pretty definitive statement about it was the Video Game History Foundation. Yes, that is a thing now.
Didn't know it was a thing, but not surprised.
But there you go. It is a non-profit organization. But anyway, they put out a statement. And the statement is a little bit long. It did get a lot of traction. But basically, what they're saying here is that while they understand the business reality of the decision that they're making, what they did not understand is what path Nintendo expects its fans to take should they wish to play these games in the future.
Right. Are they going to be available on the Switch?
That's the thing. I'm thinking some of these are going to be available on the Switch, but I don't think that the 1,800 or so titles are all going to now be available magically on the Switch.
Well, I feel like they could just migrate it all over to the Switch's, store.
You would hope.
Like, I don't understand, like, I guess I don't know what the operating costs of keeping them on an eShop for the 3DS and the Wii U are. Not that anyone's really using a Wii U. But, like, I don't really know the operating costs to keep those games up on a server, for the 3DS. Or how much money they're making, or how many people are still using those, for instance.
Right. I think the major criticism and the statement that Video Game History Foundation left kind of explains the problem is, well, I'll read part of it, an excerpt. As a paying member of the Entertainment Software Association, Nintendo actively funds lobbying that prevents even libraries from being able to provide legal access to these games. Not providing commercial access is understandable, but preventing institutional work to preserve these titles on top of that is actively destructive to video game history. We encourage ESA members like Nintendo to rethink their position on this issue and work with existing institutions to find a solution. This also kind of wraps into the fact that copyright is really tricky and weird, and so the preservation of games is hard to do for even institutions like libraries that haven't really been given that possibility.
Yeah.
In that, I think it's mostly the problem that Nintendo kind of came out and said, we're really hoping that people go over to the Switch, not really explaining exactly what was going to be available on the Switch store, and then making the statement, although I think that they have now deleted the statement since then, that these just will not be available and there's no other option for them to be available on other platforms.
Because Nintendo doesn't do cross-platform.
Well, not only do they not do cross-platform, but they're discontinuing a lot of their own. Discontinuing a lot of their own. But basically just saying is we have no plans to make them available in another space.
Right.
While we are discontinuing that.
It's a little strange. Again, I can understand the business model, I guess, as well. If it's not making money and it's costing them upkeep, there's no reason to keep it, in theory, but there needs to be some way to preserve it, which means one of the things I think you want to talk about is how we do that.
Yeah, how do we indeed do that? It's actually a problem that I did want to eventually address on the show, so at no time like the present, which is just the idea of video game preservation. And the reason why this had become a bigger issue was because, as you and I have both done, we probably found ourselves downloading more games than buying physical copies of them.
Yeah, my computer does not have a CD drive.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, mine also does not have a CD drive.
Yeah, most modern computers, like, my mother got a new computer and she's like, it needs to have a CD drive with a CD burner. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
So I burn photos onto CDs, and I'm like, mother, you need get flash drive storage. But she gives those out to people that she takes pictures to.
Fair enough.
So it's like, yeah, I'll just burn it to a CD, and I'm like, yeah, but physical media fizzles. Yeah. The CD only has a set lifespan.
This is true.
Like, it will degrade and that material will be lost.
Yes.
But flash storage is forever.
Oh, yeah. I do have, and it's still in the box because I haven't had a use for it yet, but I did buy myself an external CD drive that also will burn in case I need to. Yeah. One, because sometimes I do need to do projects that require, to be on a CD. Or a DVD, I should say.
We're just gonna burn the podcast into albums.
Yep, that's what we're gonna do. But I have that, and then sometimes, if I so choose, I occasionally do have discs of like older games and stuff, and if I wanted to try and see if they still work, they probably don't.
Maybe with compatibility modes, but maybe not with Windows 10, 11.
No, it's going to be easily tricky. Yeah.
Anyways, that's completely off. It's
off.
Tangential to the point here.
Yeah. But the point I think we're trying to get to is, as you were saying, CDs will eventually start to scratch up, and, physical media can eventually fizzle, but that's more and more reason to be aware of making games still accessible, even the old stuff, and if it's not going to be supported by the companies themselves, to find a way to actually preserve them somewhere else. And people have suggested that there could be, like, somewhere in halls of records or into libraries somewhere where they could be easily found. There are similar things for some other mediums like literature, film, music, etc. And so there's this now push, mostly by academics, to try and also preserve it in this way. Copyright law makes that a little bit tricky, and if you're talking about companies like Nintendo or some of the others, they're a little litigious.
A little bit. Just a little litigious.
And so this becomes a little bit of an issue on how to, legally and correctly gain access.
I think the path to proper video game recording, preservation, may not end up being a legal path.
Yeah.
With this case of Nintendo.
Right.
This is where ROM hacks and emulators come in.
Yes, which I know there are many companies that are not pleased with those.
No, Nintendo had a big lawsuit not that long ago. I think some ordinary gamers actually covered it, where somebody had like hacked and was basically selling stuff, and it's if you're gonna do it, don't sell it, don't make money on it, and it's a lot less of a crime, but it's still a crime. But yeah, that guy got slapped really hard and jail time.
Yeah.
For that. I don't remember the video, but Nintendo was like, yeah, $22 million worth of like fines essentially.
Yeah,
this person.
You gonna get hit for some cash.
But, ROM hacks and emulators are great ways to preserve games, especially older like titles like that, where the physical media may not be available anymore, but the data is available. So you can always, you can find online emulators for Pokemon games that are free. You can find hacks of games that are just, I don't know if you could heard that, sorry.
No.
You can find like hacks of games that you can download.
Oh, sure.
Torrent them, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Again, not legal by any means a lot of the times, but if the game is not available to purchase, it becomes there's no other way for me to get this title and it's out of print.
Yeah.
So what, it depends on like where people draw the line at what's okay and what's not.
Yeah. I think that kind of relates to, I feel like actually the concerns that people are bringing up right now is that if the company hasn't really provided a way for their media to be absorbed or engaged with, you've kind of left yourself up to what do people do if they want to. It's similar to like, if we were talking about movies, if you have like a franchise and you haven't done anything with it for a while, you risk it becoming like public domain or being open to be. I mean, this is the reason why like Sony had like the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Even if they didn't think they were going to perform very well, they needed to keep doing something with that brand.
So I have a really great example here. I had bought a couple games from someone for the 3DS. They had a Black and White 2, or Black 2, White 2, and then I think Pokemon Y for the 2DS, 3DS.
Sure.
And so I bought, a couple games from this person, physical games, because I was like, all right, these are not available on the eShop. Oh, I think no, it's Soul Silver, Black and White 2. So I've got like, physical cartridge of this is Black 2.
Yep.
Boop, boop. If you can see it on camera, if you're listening to the podcast, you're not going to be able to see that. Sorry. So I bought those, and I just bought a fairly decent price for 3 out of print games that are not available online. But once I got it, I realized that, say, this one here.
Okay. Yeah. It doesn't really like focusing. But...
So this is a normal cartridge, right? It's not. This is a copy. This is one that is a ROM hack.
Oh.
That has a micro SD card, and then it loads it in through there. And I didn't realize when I had bought it, that's what it was. And I did get a decent price for all 3 of them. But had I known that this one was a non-legit copy, I probably would have been like, all right, well, I want to pay less for it because it's not legit.
Yeah.
But it's this is just a 512 megabyte micro SD card that gets inserted into the back of this physical cartridge that works inside the 3DS.
Right.
And so that is another way you can get around that with as well. If you need physical media for the game and don't have the digital way to download it, you can always do it emulator like that.
Right. Yeah.
But that's available too. And I feel like if these games are not going to be available on the eShop, excuse me, for 3DS and the Wii U, people are going to really get back into this type of thing where those are custom made. People will buy them and resell them.
Yeah.
So
Sony had a few years ago come into some sort of an issue as well with something similar, that they were not going to be, basically like when the new consoles were coming out, that we were not going to support previous generations or make it unavailable on the eShops. That met with a lot of backlash. They eventually took that back and were like, no, okay, we'll keep things available. One of the big selling points Microsoft did with the new consoles was, we're just making everything backwards compatible, and it's gonna look better.
If you're a company making products, either do one of two things: make it either backwards compatible for games where you can play the older games on the newer systems. Nintendo is notoriously bad at this because they change their cartridge every single time.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do is to re-release it onto the newer systems. You can either re-release it, or you can remaster it, or you can just be like, hey, we're making a version of this game for the new system, which I think they just did the Diamond and Pearl remakes that are available on the Switch, for instance. But those are remakes,
Yeah.
They've done several remakes, so that's nice, but it's not the original game.
Exactly, yeah. And I still do want to see them make physical copies of games. I'm glad that there are still physical game slots in the new consoles, at least some of the versions, just because I do worry if they went completely digital, it would be easier to lose track of them. Because at least with a physical copy, maybe you could keep something original that you could download or get the data from if it got lost. One of the articles that I had pulled up was actually from the Washington Post, who did something on this a little earlier in the year. They talked to Henry Lonwood, who's the curator for film and media collections at Stanford. The quote that they have from him was that game history is part of general culture as well as intellectual and media history. It's not possible to include a full history of any of those topics without including games from the 1970s forward. He's really going back in the history here. But yeah, if you figured that we've had about 50 years of gaming, of video gaming, and there's somewhere between 500,000 games maybe come out now every year. In terms of named releases that you see on a release schedule, it's hundreds of games.
And that's not including, like, indie games.
Yeah, that's not including indie games. Those are just, like, ones with a release schedule. It is a lot to keep track of, but it's also it makes it easier for things to fall through the cracks, and so I'd like to see better ways for them to make sure to preserve that for the future. It is history.
It would be nice.
Yeah, it is history in my opinion. I believe it's worth saving, even the bad ones.
Yeah. For even just as a history of the games that we've had and have been made and whatnot. Yeah. It's nice to have that. And I would like to see all video games eventually, like, backed up some sort of digitally way. In some sort of digital capacity. And I think the real way that that's going to happen is going to honestly end up just being through emulation and ROMs.
Yeah. That being said, is that you did show that there is still, like, a ROM, or at least there is apparently a digital version for a game that I said recently I couldn't find anywhere. Yeah. After I played it back in 2001, or I played a demo in 2001 called Oni, which is from, I believe it's from Bungie, and it's a strange little game. It's kind of a quirky game, an action like shooter, but I was like, hey, maybe I could find it somewhere, and so I looked on Steam, on GOG, and all the platforms, and it's just not even listed. They didn't even recognize that the game was there.
And so then it becomes, if you want to get it, in a legal capacity, it becomes either you find a copy of it that someone is willing to part with, or you go down the road of torrents and ROMs and emulations. Right. And I think that's, like, I have a ton of old PS2 era games and whatnot.
Sure.
I think I've, like, .hack all 4 of the original games, which are some of my favorite JRPGs. One of my favorite game series ever. We've definitely talked about it before. But, like, it's not a very common game. And some of those titles are a bit more rare than others on systems,
Oh, yeah.
And so I'll look once in a while up on, like, eBay. And be like, I wonder, how much could I get if I sold these 4 games? And it's like, I've looked, and for the 4 games, I can get probably, like, $500 for them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There is a market for games that had either limited runs or that were in exclusive cartridges. There are, like, some gold cartridges from the NES era that if you...
Yeah, those ones specifically,
Yeah.
Well, this one's mostly the 4th title, I guess, didn't sell very well, and I had gotten all 4 of them, obviously, because I was huge into the time that I was playing it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I look and I go, the first 3 aren't worth that much, but that 4th one, ooh-wee, it's worth a lot of money if I were to sell it. And, like, I know a friend of mine I've known for years. I was like, hey, I have all 4 of the games. If you want to, like, play them, let me know, as long as you agree to not scratch them at all.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, on that note, there is actually another topic that I'll save for maybe next week's Weekly Muse that is also about when there was a video game collection that they found that I thought was kind of cool. It's sort of
the TLDR is, I think, for video game preservation, and with Nintendo doing this, I think you're gonna see a rise in the piracy again.
Yeah, and
not in the malicious type of I don't want to pay for this, I'm going to pirate it type of way. In the I don't have a way to acquire this otherwise.
This feels more like people trying to get all of the books out of the Library of Alexandria before it burns.
Yeah, it's like, oh, how are we gonna do that? Well, you make copies of all the books.
Yeah. That actually, in the Library of Alexandria, I don't know if you know that, but they actually did make copies of those books.
Yeah.
They
did. And then they lost them all when they burned the library down.
Well, what they did, I think I remember this. Thanks Assassin's Creed Discovery Tour for teaching me this, but what they would do is when scholars would come through with, like, unique works, they would take the original copy, it would go to the library, the original copy that they had, and they would make a copy and give it back to the person who came through with
Yeah.
that work. So there was a copy that they left with, but the original would stay at the library. So, interesting enough. At least they had the foresight. Nintendo, learn from the library, Alexandria. Right. But, alright. So up next we have another games you didn't think we'd play, and on this particular episode, I am actually turning this conversation over to Alex because he played a game that is it's become pretty popular right now, but it's not necessarily one you knew that he played. So Alex, Lost Ark.
Lost Ark. So this is one of those weird cases where it's a game you see advertised on Facebook and everywhere else a lot. I'm sure you saw right up until launch, and still it's being heavily advertised.
It's when I went on Steam the other day, it's like, Lost Ark is here.
Right. So Lost Ark is a free-to-play MMORPG title.
I've heard of these.
And so I think the biggest drive is that it's free.
Yep.
So that is huge. The gameplay, all the videos and everything, it looks nice. It looks really nice. So I want to ask you really quick. You've seen the game being advertised and pushed and everything else, but you have not played it or seen it played. No. What's your first impression of it?
It looks a little bit like a Final Fantasy in some ways. Like the initial impression, or what was the one that just came out? Was it New World? I want to say.
Yeah, New World's already dead.
Yeah, New World's already dead. The impression I got right up at the front was that this is probably going to be similar to like World of Warcraft, but it is definitely a different style that they're presenting to people. But I could see that if it's being free, the idea that you might see a lot of transition over from like a subscription model that they had with like a WoW or something like that. But
so here's the thing with like free to play is that it's usually free to play, but usually there's something else in the way. In this case, I have been playing Lost Ark and will continue probably for a while. It's actually a game I've been enjoying a bit, a fair amount. I put 80 hours in so far, so I'm enjoying it enough to keep playing it.
That's a bit.
And I mentioned to one of my friends who was playing it on the same realm as me, or same server or whatever, is that it scratches several game itches that I've got really well. And so I'm going to keep playing it because of that. So free to play usually has a thing where either it's going to have a lot of pay to win, or it's going to have a lot of time gates. In the instance of Lost Ark, it does have a lot of both. But you can play, if you don't engage with those systems, it's fine. Of course, it'll make some processes a little bit slower for you because, you're not paying. There doesn't seem to be any sort of like level boost that you can pay for, or like gaining experience faster, so it's not that type of pay to win. Which is nice, but there are a lot of in-game items and different currencies. There are far too many currencies that you can exchange into other currencies and pay for to do a lot of stuff. There's a lot of in-game shop items. So that is one thing to be wary of if you're not familiar with free-to-play or pay-to-win type games, or if you are someone who is prone to spending money on those systems. I would advise you stay away from Lost Ark.
If you have a whale mentality around these.
Yes. It's definitely got a lot there for the whales and the people that will drop money on the game. And since it is a free-to-play game, there are a lot of people who will be okay with spending money here and there on it because they're not required to.
Sure.
But on that case, that's how those games make a lot of money. Free-to-play games generally make more money than subscription titles if they're done well.
Fortnite makes more money than like some countries. And to be fair, none of those are like pay to win mechanics. They are all cosmetic.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things. There's a lot of cosmetics and mounts and pets and things like that too. Again, if you are a person who will engage with those systems, I would say be wary. That out of the way, I don't think it's incredibly predatory, which is good.
Good.
I wouldn't continue playing it. It doesn't shove it in your face a lot, really.
Sure.
At least not right now. But as far as why I enjoy it, I'm sure you want to know why I've been playing for 80 hours.
If you're playing anything for 80 hours, there's got to be something going on with it that works.
So, right out the gate,
okay.
The game is actually gorgeous. Like, it looks amazing.
Good. It looks good.
It does. It looks just as amazing when you're playing it. It is a Eastern style free-to-play MMO. Like, it's, I think, from it actually released 2 years ago.
Wasn't it a Korean-based RPG?
I think it's probably Korean. There's a lot of Korean
MMORPGs. South Korean, yeah.
So it is a game that has been released. It's been out for 2 years. But it's breaking into the North American and non-Asian market, I guess.
Yeah, the Western market, yeah.
The Western market.
Yeah.
So the game is stunning. It looks gorgeous.
Ooh.
And there are, not as many classes, but there are a bunch of subclasses for some of them. So I've made 4 characters. So there's there's a warrior, a mage, a male or female martial artist. You don't pick a gender, you pick male martial artist or female martial artist. I don't know if they're any different playstyle wise, but they're their own classes. Then there's a male gunslinger sort, a female gunslinger sort, and a demon hunter type deal.
Oh, okay.
So for instance, the character I just made that I've been playing right now is a demon hunter, and you have that as your class, and you pick a subclass, which specialization A or B you want to go into. So for the sorceress, you have bard, for the mage, you have bard or sorceress, and martial artist has 3 ones. So you kind of have a bunch of options, which is nice. The game is right out the gate very linear for a while.
All right.
There's a lot of exploration you can do, but up until level 40 is right when the entire game world opens up. You're kind of going an extended tutorial for the 40 levels.
Okay.
So it's basically to follow the linear story with a lot of side quests and moving from point A all the way to B. It's not bad because there is a lot of exploration you can do. There is a lot of exploration and hidden content and secret areas you can do.
Okay.
Which is nice. It might be overwhelmingly a lot, but it's fine.
Okay.
But the biggest draw for me was the combat.
Okay.
It feels really good.
Okay.
It's kind of like a Diablo 3 style combat system. Because you're point and click, not WASD.
Oh, okay.
So you click to move or you click to attack, and then you have your abilities, which are QWER and ASDF.
Okay.
And so
gotcha.
That's kind of the setup. But you have a bunch of abilities you can use, and then you can level those abilities up.
Okay.
And you get so if you're doing it, you get all right, my first ability, you can level it up to level 10, and it gets 3 different ways you can change how the ability works at level 4, 7, and 10. So it both changes the functionality and the look of the skill.
Okay.
So perhaps at level 4 you can change the element of the skill and do different things based on that. Then 7th will change something else about it, and then the 10th one will be 2 choices between A or B, and you can pick those. So 2 people playing the same class with the same skill can have completely different ways their skill functions.
I see.
One of my skills in the current class is the first ability I took was increases my critical strike by 15% with that ability, and then the second one I took was increases critical damage by 50% with the ability. It was okay, I guess I'm going crit heavy on it, so that's cool. So the combat's really cool. There's a lot of abilities. You can swap them out on the fly, and you can have up to 10 preset skill configurations. So you can be like, all right, here's solo, here's one for AoE, here's one for debuffs, here's one for all crits. You can do a lot. I have not even made a second one yet because I'm just doing solo content. You know, I'm just playing by myself.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a lot there.
Okay. That's good, just because I was something. I'm not a real big fan of the actual like having to deal with people part of MMOs.
Oh,
so
here's a great part that both me and my friend that has been playing both really love, is that dungeons, you can matchmake them pretty easily, but they are all soloable.
Oh, okay, great.
So you do not have to play with another person if you don't want to for a lot of the content.
Excellent. My favorite point of an online RPG is
the best part of the
having...
experience is playing alone.
It's playing alone, yeah.
The dungeon design is really cool. It's like does have a little bit of cinematic type stuff with events and things that go on in it, and so it has a lot of exploration. There's hidden areas that aren't on the mini map or the map of the dungeon at all.
Oh, sure.
So like you can just kind of be like, oh hey, it looks like there's an opening there, and wander off, and then you're suddenly off the map in a part of the dungeon that doesn't exist. And usually there's collectibles to find in there. The game constantly assaults you with achievements.
Great.
Which is a free-to-play thing that they do to keep you hooked. It's the, numbers go up, there's gratification.
Get a little dopamine going on.
Get that dopamine. It's fine. It's whatever. So dungeons are all soloable.
Okay.
There's thousands of collectibles you can get. Each different area of the map you have has, like each continent has a bunch of collectibles you can find to get the area completion from like 0 to 100. And you get rewards for every 10% of that you get.
Oh no.
So it's like, hey, find all of the things, and a lot of them are hidden. Which is, again, if you like exploration, finding that stuff, that's great.
Yeah.
If you're a completionist, you're gonna have a bit of a field trip.
So this is like Where's Waldo, the MMO.
Yeah, a lot of these things do not show up. It's like you just kind of wander and see something on the ground that doesn't have any like graphic or anything.
Oh, great.
Like there's a thing on the ground, but it doesn't light up at you.
Yeah.
So you walk over and it's like, oh yeah, investigate that.
Well,
you do.
You know, hidden item games are actually incredibly popular themselves, so, you know, it's got some...
So one of the things you do is it'll be like, investigate this thing, and it'll come up with a pop-up that's got like text in it, and then let's like, yeah, this is 1 of 4, go find the other 4, and this is where the second one is, like, here's a small hint. And it's not very, like... It doesn't tell you, it doesn't show you on the map, you have to find it. You use the description to try to find it, which is cool. I enjoy that type of thing.
Sure.
Because it makes you think, it makes you explore, and it doesn't tell you where it is. You can look up guides, obviously, but it's no fun. Right. So that's cool. I will say, one of the things I don't like is the loot tables seem to be very limited.
Okay. Something that I noticed in other MMOs and a lot of the online games is that there gets to be a point where the loot, they get very stingy with what they're giving, and like things start to become very samey. I've had experiences where finding a legendary, a masterwork, or anything that's even different than the variants that I've had before is just non-existent. Good luck.
Yeah, so I'll be in an area and I'll be just killing tons of monsters, whatever, because you brutalize a lot of them. It's fun.
Sure.
And I'll get drops, green drops, blue drops, whatever, purple drops occasionally. And the purple ones are usually maybe the same or better, but it seems to be a lot of the same stuff. So like I'll be in the area and I'll get like 4 or 5 drops for pants.
All the pants.
All the pants just drop.
Great, just all pants. Oops, all pants.
But they'll all be like the same exact pair of pants. There's no visual difference, and there's no stat difference or name difference.
No.
So it's a lot of the same drops in the same area, and I don't really like that because it's like, give me a random drop, please.
They were having a run on the magic pants.
Yeah. So I think later on in dungeons and the raids and stuff like that, they'll be a bit different. But while you're leveling, it's kind of like, all right, I already have this pair of pants. I'm wearing this. This is no different.
Sure.
Or then you'll do a dungeon. It's like, oh, cool, I dropped a pair of pants. And it's like, oh, it's just the same pair of pants.
You know what they need in Lost Ark is they need like a profession where you can just run a thrift shop. Yeah. And so the whole point is that you're getting multiple copies of the same thing so that you can just fill out a storefront. Yeah. It will be like Moonlighter.
Yeah, it'll be like Moonlighter.
You just have Moonlighter, but in the Lost Ark game.
So that's one thing I don't really care about, but you can just salvage it all. You can salvage it and then sell the spare parts that you get for money.
Sure.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
My friend reached level 50, and that is this kind of like a soft cap. So the game's max is apparently level 60.
Okay.
But once you hit level 50, it's a grind. It's a grind.
Okay.
Like, it slows down a whole lot, and I guess it's like people were saying months of time spent playing. Like, real time spent playing, months of it.
Okay. Yeah. No.
So it's a grind.
Yeah. Not loving that. No. Months to get to level 60, or just like level 51 and then months to get
probably
to
level 60.
Okay.
It's a grind.
Okay.
But I don't know what you get for getting to 60.
Sure.
So that's interesting.
A life, maybe. That'd be great. But
I don't know.
Yeah. But so if it's sort of like an extended tutorial that gets you to 40, and then you have like a soft cap at 50, the game kind of opens up basically between levels 40 and 50 before
opens up a lot, because after you hit about 40, you get to the end of the story on the continent you're on, and you get a boat.
You're on a boat?
You're on a boat.
Yeah.
You get a boat and a crew, and you can go sailing on the open seas.
I get my flippy floppies.
So you go, there are islands you can visit you basically travel on the overworld, but you're on a boat. Okay. You have a stronghold you get, where you can customize that. You can do research and send out parties on boats to do missions. And you can craft items. If you're familiar with the garrisons in World of Warcraft at all, which I don't think you are, but if anyone else is, it's similar to that. You can kind of craft items, place them. You can make it look how you want. You can place just items that are to make it look cool, or how that might have function on your islands, and make your island have slightly different functions.
Sure.
But that's your stronghold. You can teleport to it whenever. All of your characters are on a roster.
Okay.
So one of the things you do is this game encourages you to have multiple characters. So you have a roster. And from achievements and other stuff, you gain XP to the roster, and every time it levels, you gain bonuses to all your party members. In the form of like strength, dex, intellect, and vitality. Okay. So my roster is like to level 25. If I make a new character, they've already got a ton of bonuses to their stats. So it really helps that out. Okay. But your stronghold is shared. All your trade skills are shared between your characters, which is nice. You don't have to level those up separately.
Sure.
Trade is weird because you've got an energy bar.
Certainly.
Which again, some of the mechanics that are kind of the pay-to-win ones are, all right, well, if you got like 1,000 or 10,000 energy, and once you use it all, it replenishes at a much slower rate than you spend it.
Sure.
That's a time gatey thing.
Got it.
So you can obviously probably spend money on the in-game shop to get items to help replenish it faster. It's kind of like when people were playing Farmville, and spending money on items to make their crops grow faster in Farmville.
Yeah, remember Farmville?
No.
Yeah.
Did you know they made a second one?
Was it called Farmville 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah. Yes.
so aside from the time gates, aside from some of the pay-to-win functionality,
Yeah.
the combat is great. The skills, the style feels awesome when you're playing. Like I was saying when I was playing it, like even 20 hours in, I was like, if the combat in this game was not as fun as it is, I would not be playing.
Right.
Because the story
Mm-hmm.
is pretty much dog shit.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very much, it's very cringy in a lot of places. It's very much the. Oh, okay.
Do you have to
it's like
save the world from something big and evil?
demons and stuff. Yeah.
You have to save it from.
You're the chosen one.
Of course, you're the chosen.
You're the
And
chosen
every
one.
other player that happens to be playing, you're all the chosen
Yeah.
one simultaneously. Yeah.
It's a little weird. The story's kind of weird, and then like there's this priest. Like you start the tutorial, and I'm like, oh, that guy's gonna be the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, lo and behold, this guy's the bad guy.
I love the obvious bad guys.
Very obvious. And then like you get a priest you're hanging out with for a bit, and there's a couple like Deus Ex Machinas there where he saves you, even though I'm like, dude, I got this.
Yeah.
And it turns out, spoiler, not that the story's any good. Turns out he's like half demon, which is fine because my demon hunter is too.
Right.
As my friend that's also playing, it was like there's a lot of scenes where there's just the two people pushing energy beams at each other and grunting. If you're familiar with that trope.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
a lot of that.
This isn't even my final form.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for people who are out there who might be interested in playing Lost Ark, how long do you think it really takes to determine if this is going to be a game you enjoy or not? How long did it take you to really make a determination?
I would say 5 or 6 hours, maybe.
Okay. So
like the story.
Yeah.
Like once you get through the tutorial,
yeah,
it's cool. The tutorial isn't bad. It teaches you the combat and stuff really quick.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you liked Diablo style
Sure.
combat games, but also enjoy really nice visual flair and style and fluid combat
Yeah.
in a game, you'll probably enjoy it.
Okay. Okay.
If you value the story in a game, you're not gonna enjoy it unless you like really anime plots.
Yeah, I mean, I will usually take gameplay over story anyway because it's the thing I'm playing a game for. But I usually I like the story to be competent and not necessary, and not the story like from the way you describe it. I pretty much know the story already.
Well, okay, so the story, like the main story, is kind of like there's a lot of going on, but there's also other parts that are just really weird. A part I just got to on the first island I went to is like with these little tiny like leaf people. Saving them from pirates and stuff.
Yep.
Kinda, sure. And then at one point I get shrunken down.
Oh.
To their size.
Okay, this is cool.
And going through it, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't expect that. And you get like a small ladybug mount to ride.
Oh, okay, this is great.
Because you can't ride your normal mount.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh yeah, here's like, thanks for helping us. Here's something you can use to ride around. You get to pick a yellow, red, or blue ladybug.
Excellent.
So I'm riding around on a yellow ladybug. And then the dungeon part, the scenario. It's not necessarily a dungeon because it's solo.
Sure.
It's a scenario that's like a dungeon. It's a sequence of events with story. That scenario, I come out on this, I'm looking at these people, and then suddenly I'm on their table just this small.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so it's really weird, like Alice in Wonderland kind of thing.
Yeah.
They throw you in a cage because they're like, oh, you're a spy, and then you break out of the cage. Obviously you fight some ants or spiders and things.
Nice.
Couple birds come at you that are really big because you are small.
Okay.
And the end boss of that was a parrot with a pirate hat on it.
Okay.
And I'm like,
now I'm on board.
I'm like,
again.
yeah, no, it's like the story is.
All of a sudden, you're like, wow.
The story with the priest is really boring, and then the like the kingdom that you're helping save is kind of like really bland.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, but I just fought a pirate parrot
Yeah.
as a mini person.
All of a sudden, this is great again.
It's like Grounded, except better.
I liked Grounded, but it needed I hope one day it will have enough content. It was kind of like...
So yeah, it's mixed, but again, combat is great, the fluidity and the different skills you can have are really great.
Yeah.
And that's a really nice feeling. Again,
Sure.
if the combat wasn't nearly as good as it was, I wouldn't have been playing so.
If they included more of those like shrunk down and ride a ladybug moments, I think I would be more engaged with this.
And I mean,
formula.
the story, like, the worst, but like a lot of the beats are just kind of I haven't read like any of the story. I'm not engaged at all with the story.
Right.
I'm just kind of skipping through the dialogue and just kind of going. I'm like, what's my objective? I'm not reading it. I don't care.
Yeah. The best part is the environmental storytelling where you get to shrink down and fight a parrot. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Exactly.
Anyways, yeah. If you want to check out Lost Ark, it's free. Go for it. If you don't like lots of collectibles being in your face all the time, and if you're a completionist, maybe avoid it.
Yeah. Don't buy Ubisoft games if you don't like that, because
This has more collectibles than Ubisoft games.
oh boy, someone is gonna like hearing that.
So there are seeds I can collect. They're hidden all throughout the different things. They're little seeds, and you can find them on the ground or in places everywhere. Some are more obviously hidden. Some are underneath things, and you barely see it until you walk on top of it, and it tells you there's a seed there.
Right.
It tells you to investigate it. There's over 1,200 of those in the game. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And that's only one of the collectibles.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways.
So, hey, I guess our biggest endorsement is Lost Ark. Collect seeds.
And open seas.
And open seas. Collect the seeds on the open seas. Open seeds.
Open seeds.
Open seeds. It's like Grounded, but with 500,000 of your best friends. You and the 500,000 other chosen ones go on a quest against the evil priest. Excellent. Thank you for letting me know, because I don't know, I might check it out at some point just because I've heard a lot about it.
You might enjoy the combat.
I might enjoy the combat. I'm not a big MMO fan, but who knows? Maybe I'll like this.
The good news is you can solo pretty much everything.
Also like that because, again, I don't like to play with people.
Right.
In games. Well, no, I mean in general, but also in... That was a good segment. Let's just move on. Finally on the show today, we have a Mechanically Speaking.
Why are we mechanically speaking?
I'm going to tell you why we're mechanically speaking, mostly because I happen to play a game that brought up an old problem, or mechanic, I guess you could say, in gaming that I wanted to dig into. So I was playing a game, and it's called Windbound. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Yes, it was free on Epic, and I own it.
Yep, and that's the reason I own it as well. And I had heard about it. I thought that I would actually pick it up and, actually try to play it. And besides the fact that it had some good stuff, some not so great stuff, one of the most notable things is that it has pretty restrictive storage capacity, carrying capacity.
It's a survival game. Yes.
It is a survival game. It's supposed to be set on like these island chapters, so there's a lot of sailing involved in it with your ship. But one of the big things is that there's survival crafting and hunger meters and all of that. So in that you have a limited amount of storage capacity, and then you're supposed to build bags that you can use to increase that amount, or create pots that can go onto your ship that you can use to put in crafting supplies and the like.
Okay, so it's like Raft.
It's like Raft, or pretty much most games where you have an inventory space, and then you can get a bunch of barrels or chests or something, and you can put it in there. It became, though, a problem for me, because I realized I was spending more time with inventory management than playing the game. That became an issue.
Backpack Simulator.
It's Backpack Simulator, exactly. When can I get the better backpack upgrade so I have another 10 slots for my capacity? One of the things that I noticed that was really very annoying was the stacking capacities. You would think that, well, if I could just have a stack of rocks, I could just, like, have as many of the little pebbles that I want in that stack, but after 20, it goes over to, like, another piece. And then when
I don't like that.
No, well, you're gonna hate it even more, because if you have, like, animal horns, like you slay one of the big beasts that's around, and you want the horns because you can make, stuff with them, those carrying capacities, you can only hold 2 in a slot, and then it will go over to another one.
So I think it's encouraging you to use them.
It would love to, yeah. The problem is that a lot of them, they'll give you those resources, but then there's other resources that don't unlock until later chapters, so that you can make the thing that you want. So you kind of got to hold on to them.
Or can you go back?
No, not really. It's in several chapters, so there are new islands and resources that you get when you get to the next act.
Okay.
It starts to unlock stuff. So that I think is a bigger mechanical problem with that game specifically. But what it got me to thinking about is the actual mechanics of either, your weight limits, your carrying capacities, and the like, and how you figure that out effectively. Because the only real reason that you have that mechanic is that you don't want players picking up just every single thing in the damn game.
Players are going to pick up everything in the game.
Exactly. And so the reason why you have any kind of a weight limit or capacity at all is to avoid them picking up 500 great hammers and just calling it good. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, how do you actually factor that out? Like I said that you just mentioned that, like, okay, I get the 2 of the horns and I can't hold more in that slot. It probably is encouraging me to use those rather than hold on to those supplies. If they put a limit capacity of like 5 on them, I might not feel that way. I actually usually just said, well, I guess I can't hold any more, and if I got them, I just chuck them down and hopefully come back for it later. But if I have, like, let's say, actually, I got a great example of this, of how they probably figured this out. Do you remember a game called The Fallout New Vegas?
The Fallout New Vegas? No, but Fallout New Vegas, yes.
The Fallouts of the New Vegas-I. There was a very well-known, the first DLC that it made was Dead Money, where you went off to the Sierra Madre. There is a part where you go into the vault of the Sierra Madre at the end of that DLC, and there are 140, I want to say, gold bars that you can pick up, and they weigh like 35 pounds each. You can't pick all of them up without getting completely over-encumbered and not being able to move. They do that on purpose. because they want you to... That specifically because they want you to have to walk away from not being able to carry all the gold bars out of the out of the Sierra Madre. So how do you figure this out? Like, what a player can keep, how we expand their ability to hold more, and why things should weigh what they weigh.
Well, I think what a lot of games do is crafting materials generally will have their own, like, slot.
Mm-hmm.
Either they'll have larger stacks you can hold because they know people are going to just collect them, or in other games sometimes they'll be weightless. Is I think a good way to do it, because if you're encouraging people to engage with a system that requires you to collect a lot of materials, you should find a way that they can hold a lot of materials, or a way they can go back and get those materials. In this case, if you cannot go back to acquire items that you need later, there needs to be a way to hold on to those without losing them.
Sure.
Unless your intent is making sure they pick and choose what they, you're taking.
Right.
Where I guess if it's a survival game, you should be more conscious about what you're taking. But if they're things that everyone's going to want, like really good upgrades to armor or weapons or your boat or whatever that you really need, it's like, well, this is not a non-choice. It is just taking up space then.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it's either you accommodate for that, or you accommodate for the fact that people are going to hoard items.
Yeah. They didn't necessarily make it particularly easy to understand when it came to Windbound, at least. It wasn't necessarily that resources became unavailable as they went through the acts, but that there were certain resources that you did require that you did not have available when you were in the earlier ones. But the fact of the matter is that then when you would get to the new islands, etc., you would find that some of those resources might be available, but they're not as readily available. Like, they're not as prevalent, and new ones are. So trying to figure out what I needed going in that would make it easier or faster to craft something, that's a little hard. In a general survival game, just the general survival games that you have, where it's just one big landscape, I have always found myself trying to figure out, one of the first things that I have to figure out as a priority is where I can store stuff.
Right.
And how many of these storage containers can I make for that very reason. It seems to be one of the biggest problems. Creating a backpack so that I can expand my storage capacity or my weight capacity seems to be a priority. I worry, though, that when you have games that focus too heavily on, like, you need so many resources and they take up so much space, so you can't hold a ton, what they're really setting up is either a massive inventory management simulation, or the problem where your main priority is not the survival anymore. It's just trying to get a storage lot that you can go back to on a regular basis.
Right. That goes back to, like, the Skyrim and Fallout 4 thing, which we've talked about before, which is, I've just put mods in that make crafting materials weightless.
Yeah.
And junk weightless, because I'm going to pick up everything, and I'm not going to engage with that. It's like, this is how it makes it more fun for me, is by not having to go, oops, I'm carrying too many junk items. Now I need to revisit Corvega 16 times.
Yeah. In fact, I would say one of the hardest things to deal with when it came to New Vegas when you had hardcore mode was the fact that all of a sudden ammunition had weight.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, oh no, a missile's like 3 pounds or something.
Yeah.
If you're
Which, if you're someone who enjoys playing games that will take the realism realistically,
yeah,
that's fine.
Sure.
But I don't feel most people play the games for that.
No. It's one of the reasons why I really liked what they did with Wasteland 3, because in Wasteland 3, you just carry everything.
Yeah.
There's no carrying capacity or anything. There's no magical vault you go back to store. You don't need it. It's just all in your.
Well, it goes back to the other day when we were playing D&D. I think you had asked about weight.
Yep.
And this is tabletop as well. Is, how many games have you played, Nathan, where carrying capacity was taken into account?
In tabletop gaming?
Yeah.
Not really very many. I think it's occasionally postulated about, but it's one of those things that they don't talk about too heavily.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's in the rulebook. It's like, this is how to calculate your carrying capacity, or how much you can lift, or how much you can push, pull, whatever like that.
Oh, yeah.
Those are all things that are calculated out that you can figure out. But most people I know and have played with don't really deal with it.
Right. I think one of the problems that you have in tabletop gaming is that with a lot of like the custom experiences that you have creating those stories, you might come across, oh, I'll just give you an example from one of my games when I was Dr. McFly. You might just come across 50 mechanical scorpion parts.
Yeah.
Okay. How do we figure out the weight? I think what we did was, one, just figure out how many parts were around that I might want. But also, I think the weight limit-ish issue there was to mostly restrict so that I didn't try to figure out if I could carry, like, 1,000 parts around just because.
And that's the thing. Where in D&D it's like, all right, well, I was telling you, don't worry too much about weight, but unless it's like excessive.
Sure.
Because I figure characters generally don't carry more than they can.
Yeah.
Adventurers, specifically, if they're going out to do things, it's like, you can carry a fair amount, but like, if you want to be like, hey, I'm carrying like 3 doors with me, it's going to be like, no.
How many Warhammers should I bring with me? Maybe I should bring like a casual one and maybe one for special occasions.
Well, you got to figure with like weapons, for instance, it's generally you'll have, if you have like 2 or 3 weapons, like 2 melee and a sword, a shield, another hammer, and then a bow. It's like the bow is going to be 2 of those weapons are going to be strapped to you, and one's going to be in your hand at like all times.
Right. I actually do think more often about like not the weight capacity or the slot capacity, but how physically you would actually carry stuff. Yeah. I don't know if you ever think about that. It's like, okay, so wait a second. I have 2 musical instruments, and I also have like a sword and a knife, and what else do I have? Like a boomerang? Do I have a bow? Do I have Where am I keeping this stuff? Like 2 on the back and 1 on the front. Do I have them on a belt? I feel like that would be an interesting system to try and build, like where you have certain spots to put things, like on a belt or on your back or something. I don't typically see them, and probably for the reason that it seems like way too much micromanagement.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. That's very, very, very structured. But the reason why I kind of brought this up to begin with is because there's always going to be a mechanical reason why you build those sort of restrictions on what players can carry, and I need to kind of like get an idea of basically what that restriction is supposed to be. Do you want me to pick up a lot of things because you want me to be crafting a lot, or you want me to be exploring and scavenging a lot? Or do you want me to be really calculatingly thinking about the specific items that I want? It's going to change what my stacks are, what the weight of certain items are. If you make every single, like, ball bearing in my pack weigh a pound, I'm probably not going to use many ball bearings, or not the way that they're intended.
Yeah. I think the games should probably let you know what they're trying to encourage up front. In the case of Windbound, it doesn't seem like they've told you what their reasoning is, but it seems more like it wants you to scavenge as you go rather than hold on to items.
I think it just kind of confuses the issue by very quickly showing you a bunch of recipes for things that you actually can't make until later acts. Like,
well, that's just like, here's a bunch of recipes, but you can't make them, so hold on to these ingredients for later. It's like, why? It
was probably the most frustrating thing about it. It's like, hey, here's a way that you could make an axe so you can chop down trees. Oh, okay, so what do I need for that? And they'd explain it. It's like, oh, cool, I've got this ingredient, and I got that ingredient, and what's the other thing I need? Oh, that's a monster that doesn't show up for 2 more acts. So should I just keep these around, or like, should I just keep them on my pack?
That's a little weird. It's like, oh yeah, you can do this, but you can't do it till later. So why are they showing it to you now?
Yeah, why are you telling? Yeah, why can't I chop down these trees that you're showing me right now? when I can't build the axe to chop them down yet.
That seems like an oversight.
That is a very big oversight. I think it might have just been that I was in the adventure mode, and there is apparently like an endless mode or like a big freeform mode, and maybe this is all just out of the gate available. But still, if you're in the adventure mode and this is the structure, maybe don't introduce those things until I can actually make them.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the other thing that worried me about the way that they developed that particular system is those slots that you have are not just for your crafting items, they're also if you pick up food items, so your berries and your meat and anything like that, and any of your tools, weapons, or armor, masks, anything like that, those all go into those slots as well. So you get bogged down very quickly with things that are essentially like permanent items.
So they don't go into a like equipment slot, they just get equipped from your like...
Specific ones have equipment slots that are just equipment slots. But like your hammer and your axe and stuff like that, those don't.
There was some game I was playing, I don't remember what it was now, but you equipped items and they stayed in your inventory, and I was like, I hate this.
Oh, yeah. You can't get rid of them. They're like essential items at that point.
No. It's just like you have your backpack and you have your equipment, but you equip the item and it stays in your backpack, taking up inventory slots. And I was like, no.
Yeah. That's annoying. You've basically been cursed with the curse of one less inventory slot.
Yeah, like 6 less inventory slots.
Yeah. Good job. But yeah, I hate the curse of the one less inventory slot, and I curse it for it. I don't mind if they give you a pretty laborious amount of storage space up at the front. I think it's better to have your weight capacities be something that you don't immediately see or experience. If I have to start thinking about what I am carrying before I have even built my boat in Windbound, we have a problem.
Yeah.
If I have to start thinking about my carrying capacity during my starting loadout with my starting equipment, I don't think this was built very well.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully going forward it gets updated, fixed.
Yeah, hopefully it does. But I kind of stopped playing it now, so
fair enough.
It's fine. Fair enough. Mostly, so trying to just kind of come up with more of a golden ratio. I don't have one, but I would imagine that if you kind of factor in what you are starting your players off with, what you're starting your characters off with, and then maybe double that, maybe triple that as your overall capacity, and then just try to figure it out from there. But the basic idea, with the goal being, no, you probably don't want your players just holding on to every single thing. I don't want them picking up the entire world in their paws. But at the same time, if you're not going to let them hold anything, why bother at all? You might as well not have items.
Yeah. Again, this is why in D&D I will basically say, yeah, you can pretty much carry whatever, just like not to an egregious amount, like use like not necessarily common sense, but use an idea of what you could realistically carry.
I can carry 140 gold bars out of the Sierra Madre if I really believe.
It depends on the size of those gold bars.
Yeah, they're not very big, but they do weigh you down quite a bit.
Well, yeah, gold is incredibly dense.
It is very
so like
dense.
If they're big bars of gold, and again you said they weigh 34 pounds each in that.
35, yeah.
That's a big bar of gold.
Yeah, exactly.
34 pounds of gold is probably worth a couple $1,000.
Yeah, I think it was
Probably
worth...
tens of thousands of dollars.
It was worth a lot of caps.
Yeah.
Which is why you wanted to take them.
Hold, please.
Okay. We're gonna look up some... We're gonna do some, financing right now. We're gonna get you learned.
Gold Troy pound value per day. As of June 26, 2021, a gold Troy pound is worth 21,000.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, 1 ounce of gold is $1,700.
Nice. I don't quite remember what the cap cost of them was in New Vegas when you brought them back, but I'm starting to realize I think that the conversion rate makes caps far more valuable than dollars. Because I think it was only like 1,400 or something caps.
So
for
34 pounds is 544 ounces. So, yeah. Anyways, aside from that, gold is not measured in typical things. It's the Troy pound, Troy ounce, so it's a little slightly off, but generally speaking, an ounce of gold is worth over 1,000, so 34 pounds of gold is worth a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. I might be able to get some power armor. Now I just have to figure out how I can carry it.
Yeah. Well, you transmute it into something lighter.
Got
for the
it.
duration that you're carrying it, and then it reverts back.
Oh, good. Yeah,
transmutation magic isn't permanent.
Oh, good. I just need to make sure that I have the correct spells, and suddenly carrying weight is a thing of the past.
Yeah, you transmute the gold into silver, and silver is much less dense than gold.
Oh, sure.
So it weighs a lot less.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Titanium.
No, that's probably pretty dense.
Yeah, it is. Platinum? I want to say platinum's actually pretty light.
Go with like silver.
Go with silver. Okay.
Go with silver.
All right. Fair enough. All right. So, yeah, carrying capacities. No, you don't want to carry the world, but you have to kind of factor in what really needs to be heavy.
Atlas's carrying capacity was. He carried the whole world on his shoulders.
Yeah, but remember, he was in space. So
he was also naked.
He was also naked. Yeah, exactly. Atlas would be a great case study in carrying capacity because
we could always go with Pratchett.
Yeah.
And the elephants carry the world instead.
Yeah. Or a turtle. You could have a turtle. It's all good.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Am I thinking Pratchett? Is that Discworld?
Discworld, yeah.
Okay.
Was it the elephants or was it the turtle? I thought...
I don't know. Maybe both. Who knows? Anyone who knows what we're talking about, let us know in Discord.
One of them's from one thing, one of them's from another. I think we have effectively carried this show to its conclusion.
To its grave!
Yeah, exactly. The carrying capacity of our will has been fully explored. We have reached the capacity. So, Alex, if the folks out there would like to learn more about the weight of all the pebbles, the total pebble kilo.
Total Pebble Kilo.
The Total Pebble
You can go
Knockdown.
to totalpebbleknockdown.com.
That's right, and you can find out exactly how much weight is involved in all of these. It gets heavy occasionally.
It's heavy.
Like
metal.
Yeah, go to the soapboxes and you'll see how heavy it gets. That's important. While you're there, you can click on our Patreon and check out some of the stuff that we have over there. If you become a patron, there's some exclusive content that we put out, and we have full video episodes of the show that we release before the regular episodes, or even the segments come out on YouTube, so worth checking that out as well. And you can also find us over on Discord, and you can also find us on social media outlets. I am at Titanium.
I am at EXP Limited.
Yeah.
I was letting the weight of that get to you. And the show is at Pebble Knockdown.
And all the pebbles just fell on top of me. I can't do it.
Also, if you listen to the show on Spotify or Anchor, we would love it if you could leave a rating and or review. If you're enjoying the show, that would be so nice in helping other people find us and know that we're not just terrible.
Yeah. We're not just
or that we are terrible.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah, it's one of those, whether you like us or not, we always like to know. If you don't, please give me examples. I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let Nathan know why you don't like him.
I want to know so that I know if it's something I need to
That way
work
he can
on.
play his MMOs by
That way
himself.
I can, yeah. If you're wondering why I play MMOs by myself, it's because of the user reviews. Good to know.
About you.
About
You're
me.
the user.
Yeah. I think this is the reason why, like, on the IMDb pages, they don't have personal reviews for the actors, just the shows.
Yeah.
That would be... I kept thinking to myself, do they score the actual people? No, that'd be weird. Like,
Yeah.
they score the shows. Good to know. It's like the "Are you hot?" of
Hot or not?
Hot or not?
Not.
Yeah, not. It's not good. Not good at all. Yeah. I keep thinking to myself that there probably is a way to the pebbles in our name, but I don't know what the pebbles individually weigh. One day we'll have to do a little bit of a... We'll have to do a calculation of all the pebbles that are going down sign and figure out how much they might weigh. That's when we get real bored.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Total Pebble Knockdown, the weightiest show in all of gaming.
Sleepingest cat of all of gaming.
There's a sleeping cat, there's a lot of rocks, there's a rock cat.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.